So polling is completed for the first phase of Lok Sabha elections in India in 102 seats spread over 17 states and 4 union territories on Friday. Nearly 60% voting has been recorded till 5 p.m. Indian Standard Time. All 39 seats of the southern state of Tamil Nadu went to polls in the first phase. Voting was also held in a single phase for 5 seats of India's northern hilly state of Uttarakhand. The 2024 general elections will pan out in 7 phases over the next 6 weeks. Simultaneous voting also took place to elect new legislative assemblies in Arunachal Pradesh and Sikkim in a single phase on Friday. And let's now connect with our correspondent Anil Thomas, tracking the great Indian election for us. Anil, India's northeast was ahead in terms of voting percentage. How are you assessing the voter turnout this time around?
Well, good evening, Tanvi. Very much on the expected lines. The northeast generally turns out in large numbers to vote. And when you look at the top 3 states and union territories that have notched the numbers above the national average of 70, you see Tripura, you see West Bengal, coming up with high numbers, along with many states in the northeast that are clocking big numbers, especially, over and above 73, 75, some even crossing 80% when it comes to voting percentage. But, the lower numbers are a bit of a shocker. You've got Bihar that's not polled great, and that be a cause of concern, along with Maharashtra that's also not got great numbers. But in all, the first phase of elections, the biggest phase, if one looks at the 7 phases, 102 seats here in this election, a 70% turnout is good. The Election Commission would be all smiles at the end of the day as they look at the 6 phases ahead.
Yes. Oh, okay, Anil, who are the star leaders whose fate is going to be sealed in the ballot boxes today?
Well, on a larger scale, this particular election, especially the first phase, you've got almost 8 union ministers in the fray. You've got 2 former chief ministers and 1 former governor in the election fray. So that sums up the magnitude, the importance of this particular phase. Big phases from the present government. You've got Nitin Gadkari, union minister there, Kiran Rijiju, another big name, Dharmendra Yadav from Rajasthan. You've got Arjun Ram Meghwal, big names there. Former governors is Tamil Soundarajan there fighting from Chennai South. 2 former chief ministers. You've got Trivendra Rawat there in the election fray. So it's an all-out battle when you look at the big names that are there in the fray. Also from the opposition camp, many big names that have, that you've heard many times. Kanimuri there in the election fray, A. Raja. Big names whose ballot boxes, their fates have been sealed in the ballot boxes. But it's an interesting battle, when one looks at this particular phase. Many big names, that many counted would have an easy run, are feeling the political heat, as their ballot boxes, as their fates are sealed. But all in all, I would say it's been a close battle for many. And the results could throw up some interesting numbers, especially for the big names in the fray.
All right, political heat we are all feeling here in newsrooms as well. Thank you very much, Anil Thomas, for joining us from newsroom here in New Delhi. Elsewhere in India, campaigning is at its peak for the constituencies going to polls in subsequent phases. In the North Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, senior BJP leader and Prime Minister Narendra Modi addressed a poll rally in Amroha, Uttar Pradesh. All right, let's move on now. On to the US. Lawyers in Donald Trump's criminal trial are expected to wrap up the painstaking process of selecting a jury on Friday. My colleague Caroline Malone is in Washington, D.C. She gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Caroline, Trump will have to undercut his campaign time, and of course, that would be painstaking.
Well, absolutely. The former US President Donald Trump has been speaking to reporters before entering the Manhattan courthouse. And once again, he railed against the hush money case and called on the judge to remove a gag order against him, calling it unfair. Well, on Friday, lawyers are expected to wrap up the process of selecting a jury that will determine whether the former president is guilty of breaking the law. Well, with a 12-member jury already chosen, prosecutors and defense lawyers need to select 6 alternatives for the trial, which is expected to run through May. Opening statements could start as early as Monday. Well, DD India's William Denzelo joins us now live from New York. Hi there, Will. So what is expected at court on Friday?
Well, Caroline, this is the fourth day of jury selection, and the most important part of it is that the 12 jurors who will ultimately determine whether Donald Trump is guilty or innocent in this case have been decided. They have been sworn in. That came during a flurry of activity at the courthouse late on Thursday afternoon here in Manhattan. Now all that is left when it comes to jury selection is finding 5 of the 6 more alternates required in this trial. The message from Judge Juan Machan speaking on Thursday is that he hopes that opening statements in this trial could begin potentially as early as Monday.
And Will, we know that Trump actually spoke to the media before proceedings. What more can you tell us about what he said?
Yeah, Caroline, he spoke about what he believes he's not allowed to say. This is all a reference to a gag order that's been placed on the former president by Judge Juan Machan that Donald Trump has been railing against really for a number of weeks. Addressing the media, Donald Trump said, and I quote, "I'm not allowed to speak and I want to be able to speak." He says the judge has to remove this gag order. Judge Machan says that Donald Trump's freedoms to express himself haven't been limited, but he says that attacks on people like potential witnesses serve no legitimate purpose. Interestingly, Caroline, just this week, prosecutors have threatened that Donald Trump has been violating this gag order. They allege that he has been violating it. They have reminded the former president that such violations could bring with it the possibility of up to a fine or up to 30 days behind bars. Now, a hearing on this matter is scheduled for Tuesday. Donald Trump says the gag order is unconstitutional. He wants to see it removed. Caroline?
Sounds like a busy week next week for Trump criminal cases. Thank you, Will. That was William Denslow reporting from New York. Well, even as media reports of an Israeli strike on Iran have garnered interest globally, reactions to them and from Iran and Israel have been muted. Explosions were heard in Iran's Isfahan city as the country activated its air defenses in a move that reports have described as a response to an Israeli strike. Well, this comes after last week's unprecedented Iranian attack on Israel. According to Iranian state media, 3 drones which were spotted in the sky over Isfahan were destroyed by air defenses. Iran has also closed its airports in Tehran, Shiraz and Isfahan temporarily. Interestingly, Isfahan is also where the Nantaz nuclear site is located. Well, DD India's Sarah Coates sent us this report from Tel Aviv.
They certainly are, and this of course comes after this unprecedented strike last Saturday by Iran on Israel. Some 300 ballistic missiles, drones fired across the country. And we had been hearing from Israel over the past week that there would be a retaliation. It didn't say when this would happen or what it would look like, but it does appear at this hour that it has taken place on Iranian soil, which of course is very, very worrying given what we've been hearing from the Islamic Republic coming out to say that any kind of attack on its interests, on its soil, would elicit a very heavy response. Now, we do not have any comment yet from the Israeli Prime Minister's office with regards to all these reports, but we do know that the military has just come out to say that there is really no change in the directive for people here in the country. And just looking around me over the last 15 minutes, people are really going about their business. There is not too much concern compared to what we saw, say, a week ago when people were out at the shops. They were panic buying. They were buying things like generators with this Iranian threat still looming. So certainly at this hour, everything here in Israel seems calm. Iranian state media also in Iran is really downplaying this incident. So certainly this is developing and we can expect an Iranian response.
That was Sarah Coates reporting live from Tel Aviv. Well, moving on, and in his first public reaction following that Israeli strike, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that G7 nations are committed to holding Iran accountable.
The unprecedented Iranian attack on Israel, unprecedented in scope and scale. Scope because it was a direct attack on Israel from Iran, scale because it involved more than 300 munitions, including ballistic missiles. We're committed to Israel's security. We're also committed to de-escalating, to trying to bring this tension to a close.
Well, more than $1 billion in new weapons deals are being considered by the US to send to Israel by the Biden administration. US officials have said the proposition could include sending Israel $700 million worth of tank ammunition, $500 million in tactical vehicles, and $100 million in mortar rounds. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has refused to speculate on reports that Israel carried out that attack on Iranian soil. The UK Prime Minister has said they're working to confirm details.
It's a developing situation. It wouldn't be right for me to speculate until the facts become clear, and we're working to confirm the details together with allies. We have condemned Iran's reckless and dangerous barrage of missiles against Israel on Saturday, and Israel absolutely has the right to self-defense. Significant escalation is not in anyone's interest. What we want to see is calm heads prevail across the region.
Well, G7 foreign ministers have vowed to bolster Ukraine's air defense capabilities amid a renewed Ukrainian push for more weapons as well. On the final day of the G7 meeting, leaders released a draft statement saying they are continuing to look at ways to use the frozen Russian sovereign asset funds held in the West to help fund aid for Ukraine. Well, at the G7 summit, NATO chief Jens Stoltenberg said the alliance is taking steps to provide Kyiv with a US-made Patriot system.
There's an urgent critical need for more air defense. We're working actively on that in NATO now, ever since Foreign Minister Kuleba attended our foreign ministerial meeting just 2 weeks ago in Brussels. So we have stepped up. We have compiled data about the different air defense systems we have in NATO, focused on the Patriot systems. And we are working with allies to ensure that they redeploy some of their systems to Ukraine. Germany has already made a decision.
While pushing for urgent military aid for Ukraine at the G7 meeting, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has said that any further delay will pose a major risk to the country.
It's imperative that in this moment, Ukraine get more resources that it needs to deal with the ongoing Russian aggression. It needs more air defenses. It needs more munitions. It needs more artillery. Allies and partners, including the G7 countries, are committed to delivering on that.
Well, Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmitry Kuleba, who attended the G7 meeting, said the West had the capacity to help both Ukraine and Israel, and these are two theatres of the same war.
The West has the capacity to be efficient in all crises. And this must be clear. It has the capacity, military capacity, financial capacity, but it has to provide Ukraine with all necessary resources as soon as possible to save Europe from a larger war. And this was the main topic of my conversations, and we identified specific steps which Western partners will make to help Ukraine under these circumstances.
Well, Elon Musk is getting ready for a trip to India, and it appears he could be packing a hefty investment in his suitcase. According to Reuters, the electric vehicle mogul plans to announce a $2 to $3 billion investment when he meets Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday. DD India's Tony Waterman has more from Texas, where Tesla is headquartered.
According to the Reuters report, this $2 to $3 billion will mainly go towards the building of a new Tesla factory. Right now, the details are thin on where the factory could be located or when it could be operational. But in the meantime, Tesla is scouting out potential showroom locations in New Delhi and Mumbai. That is according to Reuters. Those cars could be imported from its plant in Germany, which would allow Tesla to take advantage of a new tariff rule rule change. Just last month, India slashed taxes on imported electric vehicles to 15% for automakers that invest $500 million in the country and set up a factory. Tesla already has manufacturing capabilities in the US, Europe, and China, but this new facility will give it access to a brand new market, and not just any old market. India has the world's largest population, and the government wants 30% of all new car sales to be EVs starting in 2030. This entry into the India market could also help Tesla offset plunging sales growth elsewhere. Just this week, the company said it was laying off more than 10% of its global workforce after reporting its first annual decline in deliveries since the pandemic. But cars aren't the only thing that Musk is keen to focus on during this two-day visit. He's also expected to meet with Indian space startups in New Delhi on Monday, including Skyroot Aerospace in Satshore. This could help pave the way for a market entry for SpaceX's Starlink, a satellite internet provider, as Elon Musk eyes India as the next frontier for a number of his business ventures. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
Well, that's it from me here in Washington, D.C. Back to you in the studio, Tanvi.
Thank you very much, Caroline. Happy weekend to you. Caroline Malone joining us all from Washington, D.C. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. India delivers first set of BrahMos missiles to the Philippines as part of a $375 million deal. And Apple removes Meta platforms WhatsApp and Threads from its App Store in China after being ordered to do so by Beijing.
अरे वाह, लेजेंड की बैट, इससे तो मैं खेलूंगा। फ्यूचर बैटिंग लेजेंड बैट।
इसमें जिसका नाम लिखा है बैट उसी को मिलेगी।
अरे यार,
देखा, अगर इस पे मेरा नाम नहीं लिखा होता तो कितनी दिक्कत हो जाती। इसलिए आरबीआई कहता है बैंक अकाउंट हो या बैंक लॉकर, उसमें नॉमिनी का नाम जरूर दर्ज करें ताकि आपकी जमा पूंजी उसी को मिले जिसे आपने नामित किया है।
आरबीआई कहता है जानकार बनिए, सतर्क रहिए।
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. Back to India. India has delivered BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles to the Philippines on Friday as part of $375 million deal between the two sides signed back in 2022. Acknowledged as the foremost and swiftest precision-guided weapon on a global scale, BrahMos has played a pivotal role in enhancing India's deterrence capabilities. The BrahMos supersonic cruise missile is one of the most successful missile programs in the world. US tech giant Apple said on Friday it has removed Meta platforms WhatsApp and Threads from its App Store in China after being ordered to do so by the Chinese government, which cited national security concerns. Telegram and Signal, two other foreign messaging apps, were also removed from the store on Friday. The removal of the four apps suggests growing intolerance on the part of China's central government towards at least some foreign online messaging services that fall outside of its control. It also signals less leeway for Apple in China. And next we take a look at what else is happening around the world. Indonesia's Ruang volcano continued to spew volcanic ash on Friday as rescuers said they remained on high alert following the evacuation of nearby towns. Dramatic eruption on Wednesday in the province of North Sulawesi threw a fiery red column of lava and ash as much as 3 kilometers into the sky. Nearly 1,300 people were evacuated from the area on Wednesday and Thursday. Japan started the fifth round of release of nuclear-contaminated wastewater from its Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant into the Pacific Ocean on Friday. This move has attracted criticism from native fishermen, residents, as well as backlash from the international community. However, Tokyo Electric Power Company claims that the concentrations of all radioactive substances other than tritium were below the national release standards. Ecuador's President Daniel Noboa looks set to win a referendum on Sunday asking voters to back new security measures to tackle rising violence. Security officials said cocaine smuggling gangs have spread to every corner of Latin America over the past decade and turning once quiet countries such as Ecuador into cartel badlands. There are few films as famous and as sinister as Hitchcock's The Birds, and few instruments as little known as the trotonium, which provided the chilling sounds in that film. The electronic synthesizer was invented in 1930 by German Friedrich Trautwein and Paul Hindemith, then joined by Oskar Sala, who continued to work with the noise generator until his death in 2002. A trial by Barcelona's Hospital Del Mar and the Affinity Foundation, which specializes in pet therapy to improve emotional well-being of ICU patients, is all set to be a hit. Patients admitted in the hospital receive visits by these adorable and sensitive therapeutic canines every week for 15 to 20 minutes each. So with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Global. You can give us your feedback about the program on our different social media handles at DD India Live. For those on the go, you can catch the latest updates on our DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download now. So we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thank you for watching. Namaskar.